Andrew Weissmann, former FBI general counsel, former senior member of the Mueller probe. Andrew has been in the court's overflow room today, a room set up for reporters and the public because there are not enough seats in the courtroom itself. Andrew, did you have a view of Donald Trump, of how he was behaving with Michael Cohen, his nemesis, on the stand?
Yep, you could see there's a camera directly on the former president. Obviously, there's also a camera on the witness stand, so you could see Michael Cohen clearly. In many ways, it was like when you go to a tennis game and you can't really see too much versus when you watch it on TV. You could actually see very up close a lot of reactions. And one thing that seemed pretty odd was it again appeared at some point that Donald Trump's eyes were closed. I'm not going to say whether he was sleeping or not, but it's an unusual reaction that certainly when I've done trials, I don't usually see the defendant asleep or with their eyes closed.
Andrew, let me ask you about an article, an op-ed you wrote today arguing that the prosecution doesn't really need Michael Cohen. Don't they, though? Isn't Michael Cohen the person that will tell him about that Oval Office meeting where Donald Trump agreed to pay him back? I mean, isn't that the key allegation in this case?
So my piece didn't really say that they shouldn't call him. I can really understand why they would. But the thing that had surprised me about this case is just how strong it is up until this point. And so I think very often when I've called an insider, like I analogize this to calling an insider like Andrew Fastow in the Enron case, or to more recently Rick Gates in the Paul Manafort case. When you call those insiders, they carry lots of baggage, but essentially the jury kind of knows the scheme, knows what happened, but they want to hear it sort of directly from somebody on the inside. And I think that was really the import of a very speedy direct examination, as Yasmin pointed out moments ago when she was commenting on this, which is that the direct examination is pretty fast and is really lashing all of the testimony that Michael Cohen has given to documents, texts, agreements that corroborate what he has to say. And of course, the jury knows a lot more than that because they've heard from key witnesses like David Pecker, Hope Hicks, Keith Davidson, Jeff McConney before this. So far, it's going really well. But as your panel is noting, it's less about direct examination and it's going to be much more about cross-examination and how Michael Cohen holds up there.
And Andrew, right now in court, they're bringing in the Access Hollywood tape and how Cohen first learned about it, that he learned about it from Hope Hicks, that corroborating, of course, her testimony, the very same thing. And he got an email from Steve Bannon as well regarding the tape. He was in London, he says he believes he was, in London celebrating his daughter's 21st birthday. And so he gets this email between Cohen and Steve Bannon, as well as Hope Hicks, Jason Miller, Kellyanne Conway, David Bossie, and other campaign advisors. So everybody was involved.
He also is getting an email, Andrew, sorry to interrupt you, from David Fahrenthold asking for comments, saying, urgent Washington Post query, here's what was in this tape that I saw, can you get a comment? This probably has an email from me from like 1 minute later asking for the same comment, since we went to air with the tape seconds after the Washington Post posted it. Let me ask you, Andrew, about how Michael Cohen so far has appeared on the stand. I mean, listen, we all know Michael Cohen really well. I think the world knows Michael Cohen really well at this point. We understand that he can be charming, he can be blustery, he can get angry, he can feel aggrieved very easily. I mean, if you've been on the receiving end of any of his phone calls when he was working for Donald Trump, you could get all of the emotions in the span of 5 sentences. How has he been today? Has he been more controlled? I know he's been working with Susan Hoffinger for a year on this testimony.
And is he too talkative? Yeah, the way, frankly.
He tends to be.
So those are great questions. He is doing really well on that score. Very often Susan Hoffinger will introduce a subject by saying, briefly, tell us this, or briefly. So clearly trying to not have what happened with Stormy Daniels, make sure the witness is just focused on the question and just answering it. Michael Cohen is doing that. He is not straying at all. He is answering the question directly. Every now and then there were flashes of charm, but he is neither angry. He is, he's not off point. He is not acting thin-skinned. I mean, when I put on witnesses, I'd be very happy with how he's doing. Just answering the facts and coming off, quite well. Again, it's direct examination is a much easier process because, you go over the questions and you have a sense of what is going to be asked, and they're not hostile questions. So, he should be doing well, and he is. I just wanted to comment on a few things that he did say that I thought really resonated, at least with me. I can't really say to the jury, but he was asked to sort of get a sense of how much he was really and so almost enamored with Donald Trump and how close they were. He said, he loved working there. He said it was like a big family. And when asked, how did it feel when you would go in and tell Donald Trump about the latest thing that you were doing, because the constant theme was of just walking right down the hall and telling Donald Trump everything that was going on. That's going to be an important theme in closings. He said, he was asked, how did you feel when Donald Trump would say great or fantastic? And he said, I felt like I was on the top of the world.
And that really struck me.
It was great.